We're here. We're at it. Eric, you
We
want to
are.
introduce our wonderful topic?
Yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We will be discussing financial trauma today. And so I do want to just our trigger activator warning of just we will be getting into themes related to financial trauma. And so if you are feeling maybe particularly anxious around those themes or topics, maybe not the time or discussion to listen to today, but maybe come back another time. But our goal for the day is just to kind of, again, always challenge stigma, make open doors on communication that may not be open in other ways. So, my goal for today is just to kind of bring up what is financial trauma, what that means, what it can look like, kind of from the past, or maybe things that you're dealing with in the present. And I'm sure, Tiffany, you have your own preparations.
Yes. Yes. Although I won't lie in that doing the preparations, I was like, ooh, where are the lines where people are comfortable and uncomfortable talking about finances?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So I want to just start off by saying that I um, am building expertise and working more with folks with gambling disorder. And so one of the things I found really interesting, because some of the things folks may know about me, not know about me, I'm trained as like an EMDR therapist, a trauma-focused CBT therapist, exposure therapy. So I'm trained in trauma therapy. I've always worked with trauma, but and heard many, many really traumatic things from folks. But I have noticed that there is this almost this other layer of stigma and shame around finances. And so as I step more into working with folks dealing with gambling disorder, like they're more comfortable telling me about maybe those traumatic experiences that may be like natural disasters or abuse or whatever the case may be, but not how much money they've spent, lost, or dealt with, because there's almost this just other layer of shame. So that's kind of the background of why I wanted to have this discussion today and get to kind of dive in a little bit on this.
hmm
But no, it is very personal. I feel like money is very personal, and so I do find it that I know us counselors, Tiffany, we hear about a lot of things, but there's something about money that I think makes people feel even more uncomfortable sometimes than even just thinking about therapy.
hmm Yeah, and I kind of looked at the aspect whenever I was doing some of my research of like how financial trauma can impact access to therapy and how like difficult it can be as a barrier. And well, not just therapy, but like health in general, how it can sometimes be a barrier.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, if we're private practice and self-pay or sliding scale, have conversations with people, which sometimes is uncomfortable for counselors, also for clients. I think my quick rant is that I think it's really not a great system for meeting people's needs. It's like, how do you talk about this? How do you ask for it? Like, I think there's still millions and millions who have no idea that they could reach out to a counselor and say, hey, do you do any like sliding scale rates? We could get more into the system of like why is there a system of like where people can't even afford to get their mental health care seen and healthcare is unaffordable, like that is a route we would take. So that really isn't like there are people dealing with financial trauma related to our healthcare system, absolutely, but kind of today won't go all the way into that. um, so these are so I would consider financial trauma like maybe really stressful experiences that have felt like trauma. So trauma can be a label we can put on something. So whatever is traumatic to you is traumatic to you. So financial trauma could include, unforeseen expenses that then led to really unfortunate circumstances. It could be folks who have recovered housing insecurity, homelessness, lost jobs and what that has led to. And so there's a lot of different things that can go under the umbrella of financial trauma. Um, but why I thought it would be interesting to talk about is like sometimes folks are in different places in their life, but it doesn't matter. Like they are housing secure. They do have money. They do have food in their fridge and pantry, but it doesn't feel like that to them. It doesn't matter. They're still in that survival mode of this could all go away.
hmm That kind of scarcity mindset of like, I've gotta, I gotta keep squirreling away because there's
Yeah.
no number that makes them feel safe.
And we're recording this as gas prices are high, grocery prices are high, everyone's feeling squeezed. So that is why we definitely gave this trigger warning before we did this episode because
Hmm.
It's not a light topic. So, you know, I've heard, I want to give anecdotal and make it personal for a second. So like I have heard of different, like just stories in my family of those who had lived through like the Great Depression and like what they went through. And then them kind of being like, wow, this is really intense, like what my parents did or grandparents did. But those things that you do to survive come from those things to do to survive. And so, there's a lot of just things that could be traumatic and things you may not notice. And so
Hmm.
you don't always know that you're carrying something with you in the moment. So I thought we may go through just like a kind of general checklist of things that could show up for someone who is maybe not sure if they're dealing with financial trauma. So despite having maybe bills paid, an emergency fund, food, security at work, it never feels like you have any of those things. You're doubting yourself. Uh, you never we're really concerned about not having enough, maybe feeling like you must over prepare, not just for, okay, if I lost my job, have an emergency fund, but it's just there's never enough in savings. There's never enough food in your fridge. There's never enough things dealt with. And kind of sitting in that concern if something could be wrong. I want to make sure we're not gaslighting people. Like things do go wrong. Things are going to happen to all of us in our lives. So that is not what I mean to say. It is more, no matter what level of preparation done, never feeling like there's enough. And then when some financial hardship happens, feeling even more convicted that there is, see, this is why there's no way I can ever relax or feel good because this is what happens to me.
Like confirms the cycle of like, I knew it. I knew this financial thing was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen to me. I should have, could have, would have, insert thoughts about how I'm managing my finances.
Yes. So to that person, I want to honor that you're just trying to survive. You can't pick your survival responses. It'd be great if we could, but we really can't. Um, One of the things I just would want to say is that just honor that you're trying to survive. You're doing your best.
Hmm.
We can't pick, and I do want to just say quickly to check some privilege. Like there are people who go through financial trauma, get to a secure place, and then go through it again and go back and back and forth and back and forth. So I definitely don't want to say that can't happen. But we just want to not put a shame that like, oh, there's something wrong with that person. There's something wrong with how they got to this, or this. They're not. There's nothing wrong
Hmm.
with them. They're trying to survive.
Hmm. I am curious because you have more expertise in financial trauma than I do. But have you ever encountered those stereotypes where people are like, well, I'm born of a certain economic, oh my gosh, socioeconomic class, so like I'm doomed and destined to be here. And kind of helping deal with
Yeah.
those like trauma mindsets of like, well, I'm quote unquote always gonna be stuck here or dealing with this.
Yeah. Well, that's the prism you're going to view the world is what you've gone through. I mean, and I think I think podcast is where this really shines. There's a lot of great stories of people who have gone through adversity and how they came out of it. And like, I'm thinking of my favorite podcast is like, oh, I'm going to out myself with my favorite podcast, which is fine. It's the Nerd Wallet Smart Money podcast. And they have done some really great stories of people who grew up, with not enough food, not enough money, and then how that shaped their world. Says there was a couple and they shared one of them, they both had similar upbringings to this, and one would indulge all the time and kind of overindulge, and it was like kind of a challenge for them. They were spending more than they had. And the other person was very kind of more guarded. And I don't know if I'd say like financial, like, but just very guarded, not really going to spend really more than anything they had to. Um, so I just think, yeah, there's different ways of handling this. There's different ways it shows up, but I think there's sometimes a challenge around trauma. So if you don't want to say it's financial trauma, like I've heard lots of like financial hardship, but yeah, if you've gone through something, it changes you, it shapes you. So, I mean, it only seems natural if you've know what it's like to not have any food and not have anything before payday, it makes sense that you would never want to go to that spot again.
Hmm. Yeah. Kind of like that avoidance of like, it's painful. Why would I do it again?
Yeah. So I just think there's different ways this can show up, like different things to the bill. Like I think checking privilege and so some things is like, some folks maybe like, I don't even know what that is, but it's like, if you're able to go to the grocery store right now and not have to price check things or change your menu or plans for the week around the price of things, like you're probably not the target audience for like feeling that insecurity versus, I mean, we all joke about grad students. Like I remember being so broke as a grad student going to Kroger because I knew when they marked things down.
Hmm.
And it's funny, my survival instincts is like, don't say when. Isn't that funny? I'm like, even though I still stayed away, but I found out
Hmm.
when they were going
But
to
that
mark down.
reminds me of like I did a similar thing, except that mine might have been a little bit more extreme. So it would take hours to do this too. I would pull up their cell circuit, their cell circular like newsletter. I don't know what we call it now. Um, I think now it's just a PDF, but I'd pull that up. I'd circle the things that are on sale, and then I would browse their website, and then like the things that were on sale that could give you double discount. I was like, that's what we're eating for the week.
No, I mean, and it's funny, like I'm smiling because it's like I'm proud of the survival. But isn't that funny? It's like we're bonding. Like it's like, yeah, we're proud of how we survived. We're proud. And so I also, I guess, want to check myself. Like me choosing to go pursue education for a few years, knowing there's a payoff at the end, is very different than someone who is living with housing insecurity and doesn't have that access. So I do just want to like not make sure no one thinks that we're saying, "Oh, we were in school." That means we. But there's just so many things going on, and I think some of the stuff is like it's so expensive to be broke, and so not being able to get a nicer shoe or just it just cascades and cascades and cascades. So it's so expensive. It's so expensive to be broke, in so many ways, whether that's like payday loans or advances or borrowing or interest. I mean, it's very, very expensive. um,
Hmm.
yeah. And sometimes folks want to provide different experiences for their kids, or wanting to break a cycle. And then so then if they're facing hardship, I've had many conversations where like, well, see, now I'm having these experiences for my kids and I promised myself I'm going to want to do that. And I just think we have to maybe acknowledge in 2026 how hard it is to just exist and thrive, and being blunt, how much of this is really luck sometimes and opportunity and timing more than, oh, this person is such a better counselor, such a better business person, and like if we
Hmm.
could be honest about some of those things, I think it could make people feel less shame for the struggles they may or may not be having.
Yeah. And it is crazy how difficult it is. And thinking about surviving just financially in 26, it makes me think about like all the different financial spreadsheets, Excel sheets, apps, and things that I've tried just to like understand the numbers because numbers are really hard for me. They're not my favorite thing. And it's just another layer on top of like, it can be really hard to really understand your finances if that's not something that you learned or have knowledge about, which creates another layer of like, this is a really large mountain to climb while trying to exist in 2026.
Yeah, whether that's like getting a house or car or retirement, or I mean, it's just a lot of things I think that feel very inaccessible to people. I mean, there's also, I guess I'm nerding out for just a second, but like the FIRE movement, which is the financial independence, retire early movement, and these folks tend to try to live on maybe 30 to 20 to 30% of what they're taking home and investing the rest or saving the rest so that they may retire and be free. So obviously that's a pretty tight budget for, I mean, I would think all of us. So, um, I mean, there's just different, and I'm not saying that all of the folks in that have gone through financial trauma, but I think it's making different decisions. But I want to just talk to the people who are like, you're not in the place to have the luxury of making that kind of decision. You don't even have 2% to put away or save or go. It's a big challenge. And so I think finding that balance in life is very challenging.
Hmm. Yeah. And it just like can potentially compound things too. It makes me think of the some of those crazy financial shows that I've seen. Um I can't think of what it's called, but I just remember them like, this is the envelope method and this is how you like end up saving. And I always was curious of like, well, what if someone legit lives like paycheck to paycheck and they don't have a single dollar or penny to like move into savings? Like then you're essentially asking them to like, you know, work more or do something to make more income, which just seems like that would compound the system that they're already struggling in.
Yeah. Well, and there's always some person who's doing really well that has lots of opinions about what people who should not. And I think my favorite is Dave Ramsey, just for a second. And if you allow me, there's so many memes about Dave Ramsey, but my favorite thing is he would this isn't what he does anymore. To be fair, I'm trying to be neutral when I say this, but what he used to say is, you know how you get ahead is just like, don't get that Starbucks coffee, that $5 coffee. Don't eat out, bring your lunch, don't get coffee. And like, okay, so we don't eat out for lunch, please don't buy coffee. $25 a day, $25 a day times, I don't know, let's do five. So we're saying 125 a week, 500 a month. Like that 500 a month over the year, $5,000 to $6,000, that is something. But if a down payment on a house is $40,000, that's what we're kind of talking about. So there could be people who are like, oh my God, every coffee cup I've ever had, every time I've ever enjoyed a moment, like the guilt and shame. So it's almost like a different extreme. So I think, I would think Dave Ramsey's more on one end of the black and white spectrum, and there's gray. And some of that works for people, some of it doesn't, like financial independence, retire early. Uh, but I think it's like, how do you find what works for you? And also, like, if you're surviving, you really don't have the luck to do that. But I think a lot of us we all have opinions, right? Which is okay. But I think just acknowledging how hard it is. And if you've got a head start, like, good for you. I'm not mad at anyone that has a head start. I'm not mad that, my parents and grandparents got much more affordable housing than I did, or school was more affordable and the loans weren't as bad, or able to do so much more on so much less. Like, I'm not mad at them, but I am being kind to me and my generation that it's very difficult to exist and get ahead and make a way for yourself right now.
Hmm. It's
I
a
mean,
whole
something else.
different.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Tiffany. I'm sorry.
I was just say it's a whole different ball game than what they played, yeah, and we have to learn how to play the game.
Well, I'm gonna age myself. Like, I graduated college 2017 and got a master's in counseling 2019. And I remember at that time there were these jobs that were discussed as like foolproof, secure, always have. And I'm gonna say what these jobs are for just a second. Computer, tech, business, and marketing. Those things will never go away, super secure. And I remember having moments like, wow, I'm kind of kicking myself. I didn't go path, I didn't go. And then they talk about AI proof jobs and those that are sensitive. Those are all the jobs that are really getting moved around, displaced, challenged in like a massive way.
Hmm.
So I just think things can change. None of us know. And people won't say AI will replace therapy, and maybe it'll replace parts of what we do. But, I think counseling is a medical intervention. And I think that's interesting to think about computers giving medical interventions and things. Like, I think that's very, very interesting. And, there's a lot of money invested in many parts of healthcare right now with tech startups. And so I think they are just salivating at the mouth at the chance to not even need human beings, but just a code, an AI bot to do it.
Mhm. No, that's
Yeah. So if you're going through financial trauma, I would just maybe in your noticing the impact in your life, I think my general suggestion would be try to like connect with your values. Try to like, what do you value? Do you value freedom? Do you value peace? Do you value uh, entertainment? Things getting shaken up a bit. Whatever that is, and try to connect with your values with how you're making those decisions. It's really general advice, but genuinely like it's a great place to start. And you may be like, I don't really know what my values are. How does that show up? It's okay if it's not, but I think the more our decisions line up with our values, the better we will tend to feel. And just giving compassion if like you're not able to line that up with your values. Like maybe you really do value entertainment, but it's like I can't do those things that I find entertaining. I'm having to take care of my family. Like, don't not gaslighting, blaming yourself, but okay, well, when you are, maybe what does that look like? Or what are the things you're doing? But just being kind and kind of just being honest about where you're starting from.
mhm. Yeah. Everyone's gotta start somewhere. But that being
Yeah.
said, in your in the work that you do with in your gambling work and when that financial trauma comes up, what are some of the tips, tricks, starting points that people can explore on their own?
Well, reading their monthly statement on their bank accounts, credit cards, it's probably a good place to start, really sitting and assessing where things are. Sometimes it looks like talking to like a certified financial planner. So there is, just to be clear, like there's counseling, there's like financial counseling, and this gets really confusing. So counseling is like I can work with the financial trauma, but then there's like financial counseling is more of like I don't want to call it the business side, but like okay, here's what you do. You do this step for this bank, and then this is when bankruptcy is a good option or not, or consolidate. Like that's a whole. So that would be, I think, there are lots of counselors who know some of that stuff, but it's kind of different. So it's kind of person by person assessing like what level of need they are, but also like what level of willingness. And so that's a lot of what being real, it's like, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to work on? What are you willing to go without or change? Um, but there's different resources. So I mean, just specifically for gambling, like there's GameFin, which is a way of like putting yourself on an exclusion list, so you can't be on the apps. Or there's exclusion lists with each casino, or you can't even be on the property. So if you walk onto the site, they escort you out, and you actually get like a trespassing warning. Usually not right away. They'll just say, "Hey, sir, you need to go." But if you just keep coming back, like they're actually liable if at that point, so then they'll have to trespass you so you don't come back, put you on a ban. So it really just kind of depends on what the situation may be or what it is. But I mean, that's one of the things I found really interesting is the getting through the total number is hard for people to admit or discuss.
Hmm. Yeah. I guess also too, um, I don't think I realized there was apps that you could do that would like track you in that way.
They there, as you know, the old joke or additive, there's an app for everything. The one thing that's a little challenging is some of those apps to help change habits or addictions sometimes get leaked. And there was a big, as we're recording this, an app that was supposed to help folks feeling addicted to pornography. That's the app's wording, not mine, just to not touch another controversy. But the data got leaked. So then all of the data on their users' habits was leaked online, which is, I would say, if you're in that situation, like everyone's worst fear coming to light. So it's just one of those things where I do you have to be like, even with any of the AI bots, like be really careful what you're putting in that because it's very sensitive personal information and not everything is super secure. So I know, Tiffany, you've had conversations like that with folks you're working with.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just want to keep shining the light. I think would be the best word that we have for this, of just shining the light, opening the door. We want to hear from you, our listeners, on maybe things that you've noticed, maybe experiences that Um, you have gone through things that you know have impacted you. Um, yeah, and I would say this is very personal, so it's very hard to give blanket advice. We shouldn't be giving blanket advice in general, but really not when it's something um, like this.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject that I almost would encourage people to practice distress tolerance with. Um, Being able to just dip your toe in and leave and come back to it and keep slowly working towards where you want to
Yeah.
go with it.
Thank you for saying that too. It's so important. Like you're not weak because you can't spend 12 hours sitting and do it. Like that's not healthy. Take 30 minutes, take an hour, and then take a break, come back. Like, if you're having a panic attack and disassociating, like you're not really getting anything about spending time looking through stuff. Um, yeah, I'm curious about the discussion and some of the topics, but um, hmm. But I don't know, Tiffany, anything I'd say, no, we try to stay open, but I'm like, I feel like I've covered a lot of what we kind of planned around this touch, just kind of trying to, our initial go at kind of destigmatizing this, at least for our discussions here.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I want to make kind of clarify for our listeners, and please weigh in on this because you work way more, you know more about this field than I do. But if I think there are therapists who do some like financial slash career counseling, or would it be more advantageous to like find an actual financial advisor?
I think it depends on like where you're starting from. And so I think it could be wherever you feel more comfortable from. So I think get help from where you're comfortable getting help from. And then, a counselor is obligated to say, this is beyond my scope. I can't help you do more than this, or this. So I think it really depends on the situation. But if the counselor is working often with this, like I have referrals I've made for financial counseling or planners or sometimes lawyers if they're looking at different things. So, it's like it should be a pretty comfortable topic more than, oh, I don't know, let me Google this kind of thing. So, really, I think, people can learn and grow expertise. We talk about this a lot in therapy, but like you probably, if you're really in the middle of this and that's your primary thing you're dealing with, you want someone who knows what they're talking about and is going through it, not prior. I don't know. Everyone has a first case though, so I want to be like pretty inclusive, but um, it's tough.
Hmm. It is tough.
Yeah,
Finances are
get
hard.
get your needs met. It's just too important, I think, to have someone that you're not feeling fully comfortable with.
Hmm. Yeah, and as always, you're allowed to shop around.
It's not a problem. Um, Therapists, we should be good at this. Not everyone is, so I mean we know that. But like, if someone comes to me and says, "I found another way to get my needs managed," and go like, "That's great, good for you." Um, Therapy is more personal, I think, than most, if not all, of the other types of healthcare services. So if you find something that's a better fit, you should just do that. You don't owe the therapist anything. Maybe that's my hot take. I don't know, but I
Hmm.
don't think my clients owe me anything at all. Um, I care about them. I want them to heal. I'm invested in them, but like, it's not a friendship. It's not a personal relationship. Like I am there for them. They're not there for me. Like that. That's how that's supposed to be set up.
Hmm. Yeah, just remembering that we're there to hold space for you, and if you find that that space isn't working for you anymore and there's a better space out there, that's your right as a person to go use that space.
Well said, Tiffany. I think for another day and like another maybe longer discussion, I think we should talk about the overlap with healthcare trauma and financial trauma because
Yeah,
I
it
I
runs
was
deep.
temp it does, and I was honestly tempted to discuss it today, and I just was like, we need to do that justice, and I think we've done justice general outline of financial trauma, but I think we could go on and on and on that topic. So, like, if you're open to that, Tiffany, I think we come back and discuss healthcare trauma and the overlap with financial trauma because I think that's what I'm noticing for a lot of my patients and people around me.
Yeah, Yeah, like for sure. It just brings to mind like that one bad thing that happens, and then you're like, well, now I'm financially like frustrated, traumatized, stuck. Well, I think that's all I have on financial trauma. Is there anything that we you want to add?
I don't, but thank you all for listening. And again, I really will love to hear anyone's stories that they feel comfortable sharing.
Yes, and until next time, be kind to yourself and keep growing.